whether philosophical or concrete, how to deal with people with convictions antithetical to his own, which shelf to buy for the bedroom, which carpenter to hire, and carefully considering all the possibilities. They laughed together at being almost the only non-Diwali observers in their New Jersey apartment home. They walked the beautiful path along the Hudson, trying to hold their ground in the tornado force winds that would sweep through the city, and they made lasting friends. This last Thanksgiving, throwing caution to the wind, he once again went up and down the rather harrowing ramp to my parents' house, made possible by Misha's carpentry skills, Pete's own bravery, and some delusional neighbors who thought that should catastrophe arise, they might be able to do anything about it. We reveled in the warmth of family and friends, and we were together. While I'm into playing zombies, watching Ghostbusters, and doing extreme flips 6-year-old style with Helen, Peter passed on to her his habit of acquiring every bit of general knowledge possible. Having absorbed nature programs with Pete in the afternoons they spent together, she's become an impossible 20 questions opponent. On car trips to the beach, I will never win this game. My mom, Jessica, told me that invertebrates were the hardest animal to get, but Helen can stump me even with reptiles. In fairness, the blue-tongued skink is an impossibly difficult answer, biology degree notwithstanding. We're so lucky that Helen seems to have inherited or acquired Pete's encyclopedic brain, and wit, and kindness. And our job now as Pete's friends and family is to surround her with memories of his resilience, his generosity, and his curiosity, and to try to live up to his example. Thanks.
There's been a slight change to the program. For those of you who know Tracy Haddon Lowe, you know that I am not her. Unfortunately, Tracy is ill today and unable to be here, so she asked me to deliver her eulogy on her behalf. My name is Maxine Jackson, and I'm also a brother in our co-ed fraternity and had the privilege of pledging and living in the house with Pete for 3 years. I'll do my best to channel Tracy as I share her words. She has a very unique delivery. Hi, I'm Tracy Haddon Lowe, and I went to college with Pete. I would first like to thank Pete's family for the opportunity to share some memories and thoughts about Pete today. I first met Pete when he joined a poetry workshop group organized by Janet Shue, one of my pledge brothers in our co-ed fraternity, Zeta Delta Xi. You can imagine the first impression he made, a quiet guy in a motorized wheelchair who wrote poetry. My God, I expected a baby robin to land on his shoulder and start singing. I did not expect that Pete would become one of my closest, most trusted friends, sharing the best of my college life and my most formative years in becoming the person that I am today. To explain what Pete meant to me, I have to burden you with a little bit about myself, which I will try to get through quickly. When Pete first met me at the beginning of my 20s, I was in many ways the villain in the story of my own life. It was very difficult for me to trust people or even to allow them to be truly close to me. Pete saw the part of myself that I was most comfortable showing at that time. I love to work hard, play hard, and sing loud. And I wanted to love hard too, but that would require actually being close to people. Our co-ed fraternity, Zeta Delta Xi, was a home for misfits. It was stuffed full of broken people, each toting their own damage, united under our motto, have a good time all the time. Visitors to Zate who behold our murals can figure out quickly that our sacred mascot is the cartoon character Wile E. Coyote. Wile was inspired by Mark Twain's description of a coyote as a long, slim, sick, and sorry-looking skeleton that is a living, breathing allegory of want. He is always hungry. It's just so. Everyone who comes to Zate is hungry for something, and decades of Brunonians have stewarded a community where no one is coddled, but everyone is treated with humility, commitment, and respect. Enter Pete. It is extremely appropriate that Pete concluded his college years by becoming an expert on Don Quixote, who had more than a little bit in common with the ethos of our brotherhood. Others have spoken about Pete's calm demeanor, his patience, his loving nature, and all of that is true. But I want you to know that Pete also had an endless curiosity and a huge appetite for life. He loved having a good time, and he made the most of every opportunity. I was Pete's pledge master when he joined Zate, and he completed the longest pledge process of any fraternity at Brown University, putting in countless hours to learn our history and values and complete our trials with no special accommodations. When I think back to the profoundness of the trust Pete placed in us to guide him through that demanding process, I am blown away. Pete was so generous with his attention and his presence in a way that I could barely recognize at the time, struggling against that call as hard as I was. But Pete never held it against me. The gift of Pete's trust was a life-changing experience for me. I mostly could not accept closeness from friends, lovers, or classmates, but Pete was something different. Pete was someone who needed me. We took a history class together, and I came to treasure the routine of meeting Pete at the door, taking off his coat, setting him up with his notes, sitting next to him, and occasionally exchanging snarky remarks about the professor in each class. The things Pete needed from me were so simple and easy, and it felt so good to be able to help him. I realize now just how much I needed to feel needed and how lucky we were to meet when we did. My sophomore year at Brown, in addition to joining Zate, I joined a pirate crew. Like, we literally dressed up like pirates and met weekly to sing sea shanties for hours. I hope you can imagine the appeal, the lawless escapism, the simple code of rum and gold, and the shanties. We sang songs of the sea that were full of desire and loss, and in fact, the primary criteria for admission to the crew was a certain exhibitionism or aggression in the form of giving a lusty "arr." Pete auditioned in his sophomore year and was joyfully admitted to our ragged crew on the basis of his spectacular confidence and humble aspect, the perfect combination to win us over. But all this is not to say that Pete was never afraid. He had the same worries as anyone else about romance and money and the usual. And on top of that, worries about logistics and care that most of us can likely barely imagine. And like any person with a grain of sanity, I am sure he was somewhat skeptical when he met me, our fraternity brothers, and our pirate crew. What was astounding about Pete was that he did not let these fears hold him back. No, it was off to Zate, pirates, Spain, Texas, marriage, fatherhood, and a world's worth of realms. I mean, Texas. A world of realms that many people never make it to. He dreamed and he reached for it all, maneuvering around obstacles and summoning his resources to keep moving. This was the Pete I knew. He was a loyal, doggedly persistent, and hugely passionate person with the soul of a poet. He was a true friend to me when that was not a simple task. In the past few weeks, as the memories of our time together have come roaring back, I see a chest of bright jewels bursting with color and refracting light. Thank you, Pete, for trusting me. To me, you were never that guy in a wheelchair or with muscular dystrophy. You were ludicrously brave, sweetly funny, you had a great baritone, and you let me drive your van. I'm so grateful to have known you.
Hi, I'm Meredith. I first heard about Peter when he was a senior at Brown, and Jessica was describing the love of her life. The green hair was the deal breaker, the wheelchair was not. I didn't have a chance to meet Pete in person until a few months later at campus dance, when he rolled out of his fraternity house laughing and joking, and that kicked off what was to be nearly a decade-and-a-half-long friendship. And for years I teased that at all those Brown events, I was the one that stood out, not Pete, because at most of those parties and reunions, there was usually more than one guy in a wheelchair, but there was only one painfully waspy conservative blonde. Pete had remarked in his writing and throughout our friendship that visibility mattered to him. Being in a wheelchair and eventually having all of his equipment, he felt that people sometimes noticed all of this stuff before they got to know him. But one of the things that made Peter such a remarkable friend was that other people were so highly visible to him. He could make you feel like you were the only person in the room when he talked to you. This was clear from how he was as a friend, obvious in how he was as a dad, and I'm sure Jess will debate me on this, but I think it was true in how he was as a husband, but I'm not sure there's not a wife out there who wouldn't engage in that debate. This quality came out in his professional life as a social worker, a profession that Pete seemed tailor-made for. You've heard about how Pete often ran groups, providing support for families of individuals with disabilities and for men with disabilities themselves. My favorite story of Pete's came early in his career when he set up a group for individuals with social anxiety, severe social anxiety. He prepared the materials, posted on the bulletin board, and no one showed up. Being a social worker definitely came with a learning curve. Over the years, I had the good fortune of watching Peter and Jessica's love grow. They loved each other fearlessly. They were always present for each other, visible to each other, mostly kind to each other. But their love was extremely ordinary, and I think that that's where the magic was. Pete was an ordinary husband who drove Jessica nuts in 1,000 perfectly ordinary, loving, wonderful ways. And to be presented with so many significant challenges and have such an ordinary love is one of the things that I admired so much about them, and one of the things I loved most about Pete. I also got to watch Pete become a father. About a week before Helen was born, I had dinner with Jess and Pete in New Jersey, walking along the Hudson on the way to the restaurant. I remember watching Peter watch Jess, seeing her expectant reflection in the window of some building along the waterfront, and the moment still sticks with me. So Helen, Melon, Muffin, Meatloaf, I know your daddy saw you before you ever even came along. He noticed you. And there's no swimming stroke you're not going to be able to conquer. There's no bird or animal you're not going to be able to memorize the name of and know everything about, because you have your dad's perseverance and concentration, his iron focus. Seeing the way Pete saw Helen, not just for being his daughter, but as a person herself, was something to behold. And finally, as a friend, Pete never failed to be present, visible, whether it was for game night, where Pete was a wicked contender and always had some method for being able to participate in any game we played, or coming into the city to sit in the cold and watch me run another ill-advised race. Pete was always in. In November, despite having a bit of a cold, Pete was there to watch me run my last marathon, knowing the significance of the feat of running on 2 reconstructed hips and a new knee. He was there. It took me longer than it's ever taken me to run before, and Pete was there for me. And I was so happy to see Pete and Jessica and Helen at the end. I think it's very easy to forget to see people. You see them for what you want to see them as, or the role that they play in your life. You can see the external stuff they carry around, but you can easily forget to see the person sitting right in front of you. And I'm so grateful to Peter for our years of friendship and for helping me to see not just him, but also myself.
My name is Caleb Bush Brown. I'm one of Pete's many cousins, and I'm joined by Martha Reesum, one of our many aunts. We're going to try and do justice to an amazing piece of writing. It's as Tom mentioned, Peter's admission essay to Brown University. I'm a sensitive poet. I love to write and sing. I love to think. I never stop thinking. I like to look at people and try to figure them out, especially people who are a little bit crazy. I like to play chess with my friend Andrew, who invents new moves and pieces as he goes along. I love talking when I have no idea what I'm talking about. I love music that paints a picture, sketches out a character, or makes an abstract idea more real. I want to be the happiest person I know. I want to connect with the essential will to live that resides deep within every human soul. I want to change the world, change myself, change the people around me, and change society, maybe religion, and the very nature of life too while I'm at it. I want to be someone who makes things happen, emotional things, spiritual things. I want to get my feelings out there, show the world that I am not afraid of being ridiculed or disliked for my beliefs. I believe in some great unifying soul or a spirit guiding everything, bringing us all together. I believe that all of my actions interact with everyone else's actions to create something infinitely complex and beautiful.
But I don't have all the answers. I don't even fully understand my own mind. I can't sit here and outline in calm, placid tones the central core of who I am and what I love. It doesn't come out of me in coolie 5-paragraph form. It comes out in little bursts, brief moments of comprehension that are hard to hold on to. I am by no means normal. I am a sensitive poet. I am most comfortable in metaphor and pretty-sounding language that doesn't necessarily make sense. There's something to be said for dreaming of being a rock star or cancer-curing medical genius. I've dreamed of these things and more, but I like most those moments when I can sit and dream about nothing in particular, looking at a tree or a painting or a charcoal sketch. They don't come frequently, but when they do, my moods of thoughtless contemplation let me know that life's worth living. I can feel the stress evaporating from my brain as I begin to understand myself. I am a sensitive dreamer, a poet. I love to write and sing and be myself. I want to make my soul a happy soul. Peter, our souls are happy because of you. You have inspired so many, and you are loved. Thank you.
I'm Fern Sr. I'm one of Peter's cousins. This is Vikram, a very close friend of the Gimbels. And we are going to try and do justice to a speech that Tommy wrote and gave at Jess and Peter's wedding. Pete, what can I possibly say to encompass half of the person you are and the brother you have been to me? Words can't express 21 years of laughter, friendship, me dragging you to bad action movies. And did I mention laughter? When we were really little, we had some of the craziest adventures imaginable. Much like our dog, Mom and Dad liked to have us spend a lot of time outside on our own, just bumbling around the backyard, finding weird bugs and pretending to be on mythical quests. Pete, with the help of our dog Gilly, was always the leader of the expedition, finding the best hiding places and forts, while I would excitedly follow to see where our imaginations could take us. At night, we would talk about our adventures, create plans to dispose of our babysitter without anyone knowing, and sit around reading books. By this, I mean that Pete read books while I looked at the pictures and rudely demanded a full and detailed explanation of the story at every page. Now, to me, Pete was a fountain of knowledge. I thought he knew everything about everything, and so I often called him the brain or the genius. There wasn't a single topic that Pete would not have an answer for. I would ask him questions such as, why is the sky blue? Teach me some Greek myths. Are there really monsters alive today? What about giant squids? Pete would think for a moment, looking off into the vast eternity of his brilliance, and then respond with an answer that I would regard as automatically authoritative. He even convinced me at one point that I was in fact an alien from outer space, adopted by my parents as part of a government conspiracy. Pete is a born leader. Not only is he simply the firstborn, first among his siblings to begin the journey of life, but Pete is the perfect man for the job. Pete has been first for everything. First to go to school, first to go to a sleepover party, first to high school, first to Brown, and now, as we all know well, first to tie the knot. Pete has been first for the good things, but first for the bad things as well. Whenever he was going through tough times, he taught me what to be ready for in life and how to overcome obstacles. Pete was the first for every challenge, every loss, and every moment of doubt, but he has always been able to learn from hardship and moreover to teach others how to cope.
Pete chose to go to Brown University, an institution barely emerging from the dark ages of wheelchair accessibility. And there he stood his ground and helped Brown to learn that it was high time for it to become more welcoming for disabled students. Then, when I showed up to Brown, I found a school that was much better prepared to help me in achieving my academic goals. Not to mention the fact that Pete and I could and did take classes together every semester we were both on campus. I'll never forget us taking what we called competitive German, which was your average introductory German language class, but taken with the aim of dominating the enemy Gimbel brother in every kind of graded assignment. I can't help bringing up one time when we had to draw pictures of characters described in German for a test.